So the first part was getting faculty who had the skill set to actually create a curriculum, right? So we have a lot of people that know how to use AI in a very specific context to them. So finding people who either were willing to learn or able to learn or we're just willing to find a way to look at it in more their context. And one of the ways we dealt with that was by having a committee of people develop the class. Normally, a class is developed by one person, maybe two, if a couple people are going to teach it. In this case, we put together a whole panel of people. We had a librarian who was on it. We had people who we knew loved AI on it. We had people that we knew hated AI on it. We made sure we had people from the professional technical. We made sure we had people who were going to think about it more. It's like an intellectual problem to consider, and brought all those ideas in together. And I believe they actually used AI to look at, kind of like this is what we're imagining an AI class that would cover these topics and would look like this, do a syllabus for us. And then they kind of compared it to, is that what they really want to? And in some ways, it helped them kind of go, oh no, we're getting into the weeds over here, or maybe these issues are these 2 or 3 topics are too similar, or maybe we know our students and we know we need to have steps between those topics, things like that. There's also a lot of other AI classes that exist, so we also did a lot of, let's pull all the syllabi from other colleges that have some form of an AI class, chuck it all into AI and say, looking at this and assuming students who are first and second year students at a community college, what would you recommend? And then using, again, their own awareness and their own critical thinking being the thing that AI can't do, to kind of go, yes to this, no to that. Some of it they had to actually go and research more because they just didn't know about, they didn't have enough knowledge about it. I think the biggest barrier, probably 2 biggest barriers, were getting people past the just, "No, we don't want to." We have a couple faculty members that feel very strongly that if we engage in AI on any level, we're betraying the values of our institution. Individual faculty members can choose to have AI policies, and they can choose what that looks like. So those people, we just kinda went, "Okay, you're not willing to participate in the conversation, so we're just gonna put you over here, and you don't have to do it." The other big issue was getting people to think about going beyond. You hear a lot when we talk about, like, the future of AI and the idea that workers will be trained to be prompt writers. We want them to be more than just prompt writers, right? We want them to really think about, what is it being used for? Why is it being used in this way? We want them to have the skill set to develop new ways to use AI, in ways that maybe we haven't come to. So really looking at it from like, how do we address that rather than just create a class of, this is ChatGPT. It has a paid version. It has a free version. This is how you insert information. Then you hit return. It spits a thing out. Really making people think about it in the same way that you would think about a subject rather than a tool, I guess I would say. It's a weird beast. It's a philosophy, it's a technology, it's an art. It's a lot of things. It's different than teaching a class on like the TI-87 calculator, right? It's that does a single thing. We are teaching students to use a tool that's much more than just a basic tool, and it's gonna be in some form in their lives, probably for the rest of it. It's gonna change, I'm sure it's gonna change. But, yeah, it's really trying to wrap our minds around this idea of it's not just teaching them a tool, it's teaching them a whole philosophy, a way of thought, but also in doing that, refining their own ways of thought and kind of saying, "This is machine, this is not. Both must be developed, and we need to look at that bright dividing line so that we know where it is."
That's really interesting, and you sort of touched on there how all-encompassing this is and increasingly will be,
Mhm.
over time, but then having some lecturers or some professors that have said, "I don't want to engage." How do you reconcile in those moments where something is so potentially profoundly changing the world, but also how we teach and learn? How do you reconcile that then with either individuals or departments that are reluctant to sort of bring something on like that? How does that work?
So, because we have academic freedom, we can't really make them do stuff. There is not a carrot and a stick situation. It's just a lot of carrots. Just going like, "Come to us, come to us." We try demonstrating it in different ways. 'Cause as I said, I'm one of the areas I oversee is the Faculty Development Center. We have a ton of programming for our faculty on understanding what the concerns are, understanding what it can do, what it can't do, understanding and getting actual practice in doing things. One of the things, unfortunately, that faculty are very interested in is AI-based grading, you know, which, and so we have a lot of conversations about why we don't support AIs grading. Those things we can't actually say you just can't do that. Um, but talking about why that matters, and the response is usually, if they're going to write an AI paper, why should I not use AI to grade it? And it's sort of like, well, at what point why are either of you there at this point, doing that? But also, the feedback that you give, you don't know when that's gonna sink in. You don't know when that's gonna matter to them, you know? And we also want them being the faculty to experience, like, the ease of it. Like, we had a couple administrators that were very opposed to it, and then we demonstrated AI doing reports, like, big end of year reports, taking all this data, and they were like, "Oh my god, this would have taken me, like, a week, and this took seconds." And when you find that connection to why you might be interested in it, that's easier to have the conversation about, what is it? But when people don't interact with it, when people especially when they have had no experience, I have a lot of conversations, and I mean, I get it, like, I'm not a fan of AI. I mean, clearly, I'm not a fan of AI, but I've used it. I can see the benefit of it. There are certain documents that I am very aware would be more efficiently done by them, and it would not by AI, and would not matter ultimately if I did it that way, but I am being a holdout, but I'm at least aware that I'm being the holdout. Um, and yeah, I mean, just getting people to understand it and getting people to try it, and we have a couple people who love it. I mean, just absolutely love it, and faculty listen to faculty. So we try to have them teach, stuff like that. I mentioned our Spanish professor who's using, Spanish chatbots basically to interact with students. Just using that as an example of an assignment as opposed to, because it's one of, I mean, tons of assignments he has, talking to faculty, other language faculty about, "Oh, have you tried this? What would it look like if you had them just using it with ChatGPT? What if you were to build like, what if we were to work with you to build a specific chatbot?" Because we have students that can do that. We have IT, a cross-department project so that students are not getting, access to information that's either incorrect or inappropriate. Because that's one of the concerns, right? There's all this growing fear about that, some AI is, leading to, suicidal ideation and all that kinda stuff, but if we can put controls around it, like, this week, the chatbot's gonna focus on the fact that, the monkey is on the table, and then we're gonna go to the biblioteca, and then we're.